the importance of protecting civilians and working towards a political resolution. Now, it also condemned the actions of all conflict parties, including Assad's regime, Russia's bombings, Iran-backed militias, and the rebel factions. Various governments are implementing measures to prevent contact with Syria as the situation in the region continues to deteriorate. Following the advances by rebel forces, neighboring nations have taken decisive actions to secure their borders and mitigate the risks associated with the ongoing hostilities in Syria. Jordan, Lebanon and Turkey have sealed their borders, limiting movement to essential crossings only. Jordan has closed its Jabr border crossing, that is the only operational crossing with Syria. The Jordanian Interior Minister said while Jordanian nationals and trucks will be permitted to return home, all outgoing traffic to Syria will be prohibited. This closure is especially important for Jordan, that has been majorly impacted by the large number of Syrian refugees since the civil war began back in 2011. Similarly, Lebanon has closed most of its land border crossings with Syria, allowing only limited access through the Masna crossing, which remains open primarily for Syrian nationals. And this decision was made in response to repeated Israeli airstrikes in the region. Turkey, on the other hand, has sealed its borders to prevent any potential infiltration by militants, while actively supporting opposition forces in northern Syria. The Turkish government is particularly concerned about the establishment of a Kurdish autonomous region along its border, which it views as a direct threat to its national security. Additionally, both Israel and Turkey have increased their military readiness along their borders with Syria to deter potential threats. US President-elect Donald Trump has made it clear that he intends to distance the United States from involvement in Syria's protracted civil war. In a recent social media post, Trump stated, and I quote here, "Syria is a disaster, but it is not our ally," stressing that the US should have no involvement in the conflict. Now, on the other hand, French President Emmanuel Macron expressed his support for the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime. In a social media post, he stated that the barbaric state has fallen at last. He also paid tribute to the Syrian people for their courage and patience during the long conflict. Now, here are some of the expert reactions that we got on what is unfolding in Syria. Listen to this.
So what's happening now is that the Assad regime, even though has crushed this country, has made the right choice in the last day, in the last hours. If the Assad regime would have fought for the capital of Damascus, of Syria, and would have destroyed the capital in this fighting, we would have seen another Syria. But by choosing to leave the country, or fleeing and opening the way for negotiations and a peaceful surrender between the Syrian rebels and the remaining of the Assad regime, now we have a more smooth transition probably. And the bureaucrats and the technocrats of the Assad regime will probably play a role in this transition period. So by surrendering peacefully, there is now a bigger hope for Syria to end this conflict peacefully and to do not have a spillover, to not have acts of revenge. And especially the Alawite minority in the coastal region of Syria who supported the Assad regime to the last day now have a more secure position with the peaceful surrender. And I can expect that the Syrian rebels will coordinate with the technocrats and bureaucrats of the Assad regime to make this transition as smooth as possible, because they need their capabilities to run a state. Even though the Syrian rebels have shown their capabilities, even though they have the institutions, it's always good to have some technocrats and bureaucrats who knows how things run and who can help in the transition period.
On one hand, positive is that Iran has been very, very weakened as a result of Israel's strikes on Iran and, of course, their proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas down in Gaza. You know, these might be different sides here. You're talking about Shia, you're talking about Sunni, all these different parties. But at the end of the day, Iran is the head of the octopus, and that still remains our greatest threat. But as you said, we do have to pay attention to this new reality. We do have to take into consideration the fact that some of these Sunni-led groups in Syria perhaps will turn their attention towards us. We know that they're enemies of Iran, but they are not a friend of the state of Israel. You can make the argument that certain Kurdish groups who are Western-backed, backed by the United States, definitely have common interests with the state of Israel. But if you're talking about the HDS, if you're talking about the rebels there supported by the Turkish regime, they certainly don't have the interests of the state of Israel or the Western world on their minds. So we have to pay attention very, very carefully to the spiraling situation there in Syria.
Lavrov has characterized any opposition to Bashar al-Assad as basically ISIS and al-Qaeda. So I don't think we need pay any mind to him. But the reports are that Russia, I've seen satellite photographs showing the Russian base at Tartus, the naval base, is empty. They ordered their ships to put to sea and have basically vacated their only naval base in the Mediterranean. We've also had reports that Iran has ordered its Revolutionary Guard officers who command the basic ethnic militias that have been raised in Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan to actually be the cannon fodder for the war on behalf of Assad. They've ordered their officers to leave the country. They just don't want to lose any more of them. So I think they've kind of recognized that Syria as a functioning partner of them or a proxy of them, that just doesn't exist anymore.